Hi everyone, Professor King here. I'm feeling very Carol Brady with my hair today. And if you don't know who that is, congratulations on being youthful and exuberant, unlike me. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about analyzing texts, particularly as they relate to the reading Fighting Post-Truth by John McIntyre. So without further ado, I will just dive right in. However, I always like to remind you, well, one, that life is short because the ambulance is driving by. But I also want to remind you that you can contact me through Zoom, through Canvas text messaging, or I'm sorry, Canvas messaging, or through my instructor email. And also feel free to pause and take notes as this video is going on. All right, so that being said, let me take it to a share screen and I will pull up the PowerPoint so that we can talk about what it means to analyze a text. All right, so chapter 11, we're talking analyzing texts. So how do we write a textual analysis? Well, first, what is text and what's a textual analysis? Well, a text is anything that a writer, a creator, an artist, a person crafts in order to share a message with any given audience. So that's pretty broad. Well, what does that mean, Kinger? What it means is that things like poems, things like scholarly journal articles, things like short stories, novels, films, television series, sculptures, oil paintings, all of those things and so many more are considered texts because you have something that someone has created because they felt so moved to share an idea or a perspective about society, about the world, about what's on their mind with an audience, which could be one person, it could be a billion people, that they decided to craft this thing and say it in a way that is authentic to them. All right. So for example, right, we've got Cardi B here reading The Fire and the Fury, which is cute and silly on its own, right? But think about Cardi B, no matter what your opinion of her is. Cardi B is the creator, you know, with some other people, and you know, she's got some producers and co-songwriters, and she'll a lot of times have a guest rapper or pop artist on her tracks, but she is a creator. What in 103 you'll find out is called a rhetor or an orator. She creates texts, whether that be her music videos, whether it be her songs, whether it be her outfits when she goes out in public, but she crafts these texts, or her Instagram posts. That's another example of a text, right? She creates these messages that people see, they hear, they read, they absorb. And she's sharing an idea that she has with the world, okay? So that's all a text is. So what is analysis? Well, analysis is what we do when we read a text closely and after we read a text closely. It's what we think of the text, how we respond to it, again, both emotionally and intellectually. And so when you write a textual analysis, you have to choose a text to analyze. A lot of times the text is chosen for you, like in a college class where you have to do specific readings and then respond to them. But sometimes you get to choose it yourself, right? If you are talking to your friends about what you think about Cardi B's music, you've chosen that text to analyze, right? Then you choose the text, whether it's a short story, a song, a film, a piece of research, etc. Then you consider the rhetorical situation. You consider the rhetorical situation. And I'll talk more about the rhetorical situation in a moment, but know that the rhetorical situation involves the purpose, the audience, the writer's stance or the creator's stance, how they feel about the subject matter they're talking about, and the medium they're using, whether it's a rap song, it's a, you know, whether it's an article, whether it's a short story, and the design elements that they use for that medium. So like a rap song is going to have different design elements than a college level essay, and vice versa. So think about how all of those play together to create a text, and then what effect it has on the audience. So the rhetorical triangle, which is a visual representation of the rhetorical situation, has three cruxes, right? It has three main points to it. The first point is the author or the rhetor, the person creating the text. They come up with an idea, they come up with something they want to share with others, with the world. And that's where it starts, in the creation of that text. It actually starts even earlier than that, because a lot of times our texts are responses to other texts. So, you know, maybe Cardi B heard the song "I Like It Like That," that sort of salsa tune that you know, sort of like a Latin music staple. And she said, you know what, I kind of want to do a response to this and kind of build on it and make it my own. So she's responding to another text, but she's making the text that she creates with Bad Baby and whoever else was on that track, she's making that her own text. So we start with the author, the text they want to create. The author, when they're creating the text, or what's called the message, which becomes the thing that the rhetorical triangle then, you know, ultimately encapsulates or creates, when they're creating this message, they've got to think about two things. First, they have to think about their audience. To whom am I speaking? Either intentionally or unintentionally. Because again, not everybody's a Cardi B fan. Some people came across her music and were like, no, thank you, ma'am, not for me. But they unintentionally become her audience either way, because they hear the song, because they see the Instagram post, because they see the interview or read the interview. So an author's audience is incredibly important. One, because it's not always who the author intends. It can change through time and through geography, et cetera. But an author creating a text always has an audience, even if it's just an imagined audience. There's always an audience, at least in mind, for the text that they're going to create. And that's, you know, if we think about our audience is crucial to this, because think about it this way. An email I send to my best friend about what we did over the weekend is going to be very different than the email I'm sending to my grandma or my professor about what I did over the weekend, possibly. So I change my message. I use different words. I even maybe format it in an email versus a text message. I do all sorts of different things because that audience changes depending on what I want to say in the message. And the message changes depending on the audience that I get. And then keeping all that in mind, we have the author's purpose. Why is she telling us this thing? Why is she singing this song? Why is she telling us this story? Why did she publish this journal article? What was she trying to get us to think, feel, believe, or act upon? And why? What's she trying to get us to do, right? Why did she feel so strongly about this particular message to share it with the world? And then and again, these three items, when one of them changes, the whole thing changes, right? So this looks very static. It just looks like a very static triangle, but really a rhetorical situation is something that is incredibly dynamic, meaning it can change all the time. You know, if Cardi B puts out a rap song and she puts it out to her followers, most of them are going to say, oh, I love it, it's great, blah, blah, blah. But if she puts it out to her naysayers, like say Ben Shapiro or Candace, what's her name? I can't remember Candace's last name. Like those political pundits who hate Cardi B. Candace Owens? Maybe it's Candace Owens. If they receive her message, then it's going to be a very different purpose, probably. It's going to be a very different reception of that message, a very different critique of that message. Speaking of rap music, you can probably hear that outside my window right now. But that's what we mean when we say when one thing changes, the whole thing changes. The way that Cardi B responds to people like Ben Shapiro is very different than the way she responds to people who love and respect her music. So she's going to create a different message for them. She's going to have a different tone. She's going to have a different purpose. So again, when one thing changes, it all changes. But we need all of these things in order to have argument, which is what the rhetorical situation is. It's the space and place for argument. So we need to know all that going into writing a textual analysis. So how do we write a textual analysis? Well, we have to generate ideas and we have to generate our own text as response. You know, in the same example I used, Cardi B took I Like It Like That and responded with sort of her own riff on that song, right? I said, I like it like that. But I know my singing is horrible, but I'm trying to contextualize what I'm talking about here. So she came up with ideas. She said, I'm going to put Bad Bunny on this track. I'm going to use these producers. I'm going to say these things about being Dominican American, you know, et cetera, et cetera. She generated ideas and then created the text. Okay. So once you've done that, once you've generated ideas about a text you're responding to, you also have to go back to the text. Again, I've mentioned before, reading once is not enough. So go back, or even the first time, take notes and summarize and analyze what you're looking at. Highlight, underline, notes in the margins, emojis in the margins, voice memos about the text, anything to help you document your response, both intellectual, which is the summary, and analyze, which is more the emotional, so that you can have a proper analytical response to a text. And then think about the larger context, right? What do you know about this topic, about this writer, about this subject matter, about the historical period in which it was written, about biographical information about anyone involved? And if the answer is not a lot, then that's going to tell you what you need to research. Well, I don't know a ton about, you know, Latin music and the original song, I Like It Like That. So I'm going to study it and find out who wrote the original and what time and where and what was the purpose, right? So that your context, the thing outside of the argument that the argument is contained within, becomes more complex, it becomes broader, it becomes a space that you can pull more things from. All right. Again, think about what you know about the writer or the reader or the person creating the message. If the answer is not a lot, then do your research. Look at how the text functions. You know, I'll just keep going with the Cardi B example. That song, I Like It Like That, again, it's like a dance track. It's fun, it's lighthearted, it's not meant to be taken very seriously. Then you contrast that with something like Be Careful, right? Which is like a more slow-paced, emotional kind of track that's serious. Then those texts function in very different ways. One has a higher BPM, right? Because it's more dancey. One uses kind of lower tones on the music scale because it's more serious. You know, one references a happy song, one references a sad event. So thinking about how those texts function gives us insight into, again, who's writing it, why they're writing it, to whom they're writing it, and what it's saying. Then describe the text to yourself. What kind of a text is it? Is it a pop song? Is it a rap song? Is it a short story? Is it a news article? Well, based on the genre it is, and that's kind when we talk about the kind of text, right? Based on the genre that it falls into, it's going to have a different audience. It's going to have a different way that it's received. It's going to have a whole different rhetorical situation. But be able to know what kind it is so that you can describe it to yourself. And then explore your response, again, both intellectual and emotional, because both of those are equally important at this stage, at this stage in the game. You know, if you're just summarizing, you're doing only part of the work. But also, if you're just giving a bunch of opinions without showing that you've actually read and thoughtfully considered a text, you're also, you know, only doing half the work. So keep that in mind. Okay, next you want to start thinking about, well, what is my, given the intellectual things I know about this text and the way that I'm summarizing it, the gist of what I'm getting from this text intellectually, how do I feel about it? And once you have that answer, you start developing your thesis, because a thesis is an argument, which is an educated opinion. We can use all three of those interchangeably. Thesis is an argument, is an educated opinion. And educated being the operative term there, because again, that's showing that intellectual and emotional working together. Then start brainstorming everything you can think about in response to the text. Does it make you think of a real life event? Does it make you think of a news event? Does it make you think of another text or something from history or something you know about the writer? How does it make you feel? Talk about all the feelings it makes you feel. Get those on the page. Let them be messy. Then start organizing. Whether you want to outline, as we see here to the right, whether you want to do a visual map, which I'll be talking about at length in this course, whether you want to organize by theme, by topic, whether you want to organize text by text, whether you want to do a compare and contrast with that text and something else outside of it, whether spatial organization helps you, whether you want to organize by order of importance, right? Most important, second most important, third most important, least most important, or something of that nature, or whether you want to do it chronologically, like first this person did this, then they did that, then they did that, and then I responded in these ways, in order of the way I responded. All of those are valid ways of organizing your ideas. And some of them are going to fit certain responses, certain prompts, certain texts better than others, but they're all valid ways of responding. All right, so we've brainstormed, we've got a working thesis, we've started even organizing our ideas. So then we have to begin writing the draft of our essay. And if you notice here, it says start with the body, then go to the introduction, then conclusion. And everybody goes, well, that's in the wrong order. Not when you're drafting. Think about it this way, especially for those of you who, when you start writing an essay, you start at the intro and then you get stuck. There's a reason why you get stuck. That's because an intro is like a 2 to 3 sentence encapsulation of everything you've written in an essay. And how do you know what that 2 to 3 sentences is going to be unless you have the everything first, which is the body of the essay? So when you start drafting, when you start creating your own text, start with the body. Work your way through the body. Again, if it's messy at first, that's fine. And then look back over what you've written and ask yourself, how do I condense this into a 1 to 2 sentence argument, into a thesis? And so I will repeat this again and again, but the best place to start for most people is the body of an essay, especially if you get stuck going, what the heck am I going to say, right? Say it first, go into the details, and then go back, summarize it into 2 to 3 sentences, and put that in your intro. Your reader, it is of no significance to your reader where you first started drafting. As long as at the end, they're all in the right places, intro, body, conclusion, who cares where you start? You're going to organize, you're going to structure, you're going to clean up later in the revising stage. Because this is a humanities level class, make sure you have your work in MLA format. And again, talking about that editing and revising, get as many things on that as possible once you have a working first draft, and take constructive criticism. I know right now we are all just like walking blisters, right? Like we are just afraid, ready to burst into some icky goo on anyone who barely, rubs us the wrong way. And I know it's a super creepy, weird metaphor, but it's true. All of us emotionally are on high alert. We've got frayed edges because of all the stuff going on in the world today. And I get that. But writing is something we do all the time. And in the same way that you are able to take criticism for, I don't know, shooting free throws or riding a bike or having proper technique when you do yoga, cooking a meal with the right ingredients, right? If someone says, or if you eat your own cooking and you go, this needed more salt, I would hope the next thing you do isn't beating yourself up and saying you're a horrible cook forever and ever. And yet when we write and we make these like sort of tiny errors, or these errors that are easily addressable if we just work on them, you know, if we make those when we're writing, we always tend to beat ourselves up and be like, well, I'm the worst writer, I'm horrible. It's not the case. Writing's a craft just like anything else. And as someone who's been doing writing and teaching writing for over half my life, I can tell you that it's a craft you can always work at. It's a craft you're never going to be perfect at. And that's the beautiful thing about it. That's not the bad thing, because that means you get to forever grow as a writer, as an artist. And so that constructive criticism is necessary, because when we don't listen to it, or we turn off, or we internalize it and beat ourselves up, one, we're being pretty toxic to ourselves, right? When we do that, that's not good. And two, we don't grow as writers. And so instead of beating yourselves up and saying I'm a horrible writer because of, I don't know, commas or something, just take that constructive criticism and build on it. Because you're not even going to remember writing these essays in 5 years. So why waste the time making yourself feel bad over them, right? All right, and finally, take stock of your work and think of where you go from here. When you do workshop, when you do get eyes on that, when you go to tutoring or come to me or get friends to look at it, take in their responses. You may take some of your peer responses with a grain of salt. And by that, I mean, they might give you feedback that you go, I disagree. I'm going to go this way with it. And that's okay. You're going to get other feedback that they point out and you're going to go, oh yeah, I'll fix that. No big deal. Think about where you want to improve. And then this is one thing that I really want people to listen to within themselves. How do you feel about your essay? And with essay one, it's going to be, you know, that's going to be a little bit of a crapshoot, because you have people who are, you know, who are fine, but then beat themselves up. You have people who just, you know, are either new or returning to this and still have some blind spots. You've got everything in between. You know, you have those people who beat themselves up. You have those people who are like, I don't remember any of this. You have people who are like, I don't know, right? I don't know what Kinger expects. I get it. But deep down, you know how you feel about your writing, and you know the strengths you have, and you know the things you want to work on. So really try to sift through all the anxiety stuff, as difficult as that may be. I'm not saying that's easy, but sift through all your anxieties to get to how you really feel about your essay. And if there's a paragraph where you're going, I don't think that's going to work, or if the intro you think is a little, I don't know, right? Listen to that, because 9 times out of 10, students know exactly what part of their essays needed more work before final submission. And if you listen to that beforehand, it'll save you a little trouble. And then it'll also help you to understand where you're at in terms of your writing, where your toolbox is, where the stuff you still need to work on is, and how you achieve that. So let's think about this in terms of McIntyre's fighting post-truth, okay? Always, right? Just like in the last video from last week or / earlier this week, make sure when you're reading, you're highlighting, you're annotating, you're putting those emojis in the margins, you're taking documented stock of what you're reading, okay? Preview the text so that you know about how long it's going to take you to read it. Kind of, you know, look at the images that are on the text, because this text actually does have images, and ask yourself, you know, what do I think this is about? Read kind of the first 2 and last 2 paragraphs to see if you can get any sort of overall gist in there, and then start reading the whole thing, highlight, annotate, take notes as you go. As you do those things, keep in mind, 1, the rhetorical situation that I talked about in a previous slide. Who's the author? Who's their audience, do you think? And don't say everybody for the audience. Think about who they're trying to reach. Be more specific than everybody when you're thinking about audience. What's their purpose? And what kind of text is this? What's it saying? What's its argument? What's its message? What details does it provide? How is it structured? What's its overall thesis? And again, this is not a college level essay, so don't fall into that trap of thinking the thesis is in the first paragraph. This is an article, so it's not necessarily thesis in first paragraph, okay? But when you get to the thesis, when you find it within this article, be able to summarize it in your own words. Don't just cut and paste it, because that's, you know, that's haphazard reading. Be able to say it in your own words. What are the more detailed sub-arguments that McIntyre is making throughout this thing that harken back to that overall thesis? What evidence is he using? Lee McIntyre, I think I said John earlier, it's Lee McIntyre. Whatever evidence is he providing to support those sub-arguments in each of those sections? What does he say that each set of claim, right, which is those sub-arguments, and evidence shows, which is his analysis? How's, you know, he's talking about something else that he's analyzing. So where's his analysis and what is it saying? And then what do you need to do to research more about this topic, about McIntyre, about what post-truth means, about how we fight it, all of those things. So that is my advice to you as you read McIntyre's post-truth, Fighting Post-Truth. Do these things. I'm not going to give you I'm not going to give away anything this time, because I want you to do this reading, highlighting, annotating, what's the word I'm looking for? Dedicated scholarly work yourself. And if you get it slightly wrong, who cares? I'm not looking for perfection. I'm looking for honest grappling with the text. I'm not, you're not getting quizzed on this thing, but I want to see you grapple with this text. I want to see you say, oh, I think I got it. Here's what it is, I think. That's okay. That's fine, but do these things that I'm listing here to help you. All right, so that is that. I'm taking it off stop share. Ooh. I hope this helped. Again, if questions arise, concerns arise, anything, message me, Canvas, email, or Zoom. Well, I hope you all have a great rest of your day and week and everything else. And I will see you all in cyberspace. Bye-bye.